You would never pick people to be around you that could outshine you.
JD Vance thinks he's running for president. Marco Rubio probably does too. But they may be competing in a race they can never win. Because Donald Trump doesn't build successors, he builds loyalists. And eventually, their greatest strength, their closeness to Trump, could become their greatest liability. I'm joined by Puck's Julia Ioffe to discuss 2028 and whether it's a race to the bottom. So Trump has been putting the Marco and Vance ticket up to the test, right? He polled dinner guests a few weeks ago about who would be a stronger who would be stronger, Vance or Marco. What do you think?
You know, it's interesting. I've spoken to people from the Marco sphere, and they're just like, Vance can have Iran and Israel. Like, great. We'll just quietly sit back and watch him kind of own this dumpster fire. I mean, personally, I don't know. I'm not like a MAGA watcher, and I don't know how Republican voters and Republican primary voters would view them. Rubio has done, I mean, talk about somebody who's politically flexible, right? In early days, people in DC, early days of this administration, when it looked like Ukraine was getting totally thrown under the bus and slash, if you want to mix metaphors, fed to Vladimir Putin, there was all this consternation in DC of like, what happened to Rubio the hawk that we all knew in the Senate, who was calling Putin a war criminal and blah, blah, blah. I mean, talk about political flexibility, but for some reason he can do it. He's a better actor than JD Vance. I think he's a better politician. He's more likable. He's more, he can be just as scoldy as JD Vance, but it somehow is like I think it goes down easier.
Right. But he has run for president before, and clearly that didn't work.
I don't know. Again, like I said, I don't know how it's going to play in a Republican primary. I personally think that, you know, having seen however many presidential primaries now, the people you're talking about earliest on are never the people who finish the race.
That's very true.
So I personally doubt it's going to be JD Vance or Rubio at the end. Like it'll be like Donald Trump Jr. or something.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it. Donald Trump Jr. really propped up Vance from the beginning, even when he was floundering in Ohio. Like, I remember at the time I was reporting for Puck when we were colleagues, and I was getting calls, frantic calls from people being like, what is JD doing? He's not out campaigning. He's not working hard enough. They were in the cavalry in, they had Peter Thiel, all this money, Donald Trump Jr. facilitating all of these, you know, reconciliations with his father. I think at some point he's going to have to pay the bill. And I don't, you know, don't you think?
Vance?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I just think he's not
a Trump Jr. ticket, or maybe it is letting Trump Jr. run. I don't know.
I don't think it's about letting. Like in Trump world, you get told what to do. Like the boss says how it's going to be, and you either fall in line or you get completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's also, I remember vividly the Trump won presidency, and it was Donald Trump Jr. who was his father's connection to the base, kind of translating for him the language of the base, the what they cared about. He was the link to the podcast. He was the link to Charlie Kirk, to all these people.
Every reporter gets the same number, 37.5 billion. But if you use this show's sponsor, Ground News, like I do, you get to see in one place what happens next, how they frame the story. One outlet, like the Associated Press, which Ground News calls left-leaning, but with high factuality, portrays it as a devastating admission. With the headline, Hegseth estimates Iran war has cost $37.5 billion as he defends funding request at fiery hearing. While Newsweek, which Ground News describes as right-leaning with mixed factuality, doesn't even include the price tag in the headline. It reads, Pete Hegseth gives Senate new price tag for Iran war. They instead frame it as a necessary price of national security. Same fact, completely different story. And as you all know, in my line of work, understanding the media is just as important as understanding the news. That's why I check ground news before I publish. And you can too by going to groundnews.com/Tara, where you can get 40% off the plan that I use, the Unlimited Vantage plan. It helps me compare headlines side by side, see where the political blind spots are, and understand how narratives are being built so I don't just repeat them. If you're trying to separate facts from framing, check out Ground News by going to groundnews.com/Tara and sign up for the Unlimited Vantage plan. You can do that by using the link below. You can only get this offer though by using the link. So go to groundnews.com/Tara.
To me, if talking about, if it's going to be JD Vance or Rubio is a little bit like in 2014, we were talking about, oh my God, is it going to be Jeb
Ron
Bush?
DeSantis. Oh, you're talking about, yeah.
No, or like 2016, like, is it going to be
yeah.
Jeb Bush or John Kasich, or, is it going to be Ron DeSantis? It's definitely going to be Ron DeSantis. And like, where's Ron DeSantis now? He's still in Florida,
Yeah.
but
no, I agree with you entirely. There are just like a few things about JD Vance that I cannot wrap my head around. The Catholic conversion, which we already touched on, I don't understand.
What do you think as the Catholic? Like,
I don't understand at all. I know there's been this push towards like values and traditions and of any of the Christian religions that like is very almost orthodox. I would put Catholic in that bucket.
Yeah.
In the sense that like there are so many rituals and it's, you have to go to confession. You can't just like buy into it. It's a bit more of a, it's
procedural.
Like, yeah, it's, if you wanted to be like a born again Christian, you just show up and like you can go into a bathtub and you're born again Christian. Like you don't have to be a part of anything. It is a bit much more cultural. And if he's trying to start this sort of cultural white revolution, I guess that's part of it. But I still can't wrap my head around it.
The Catholic thing, it kind of makes sense to me. There's this, so when I was like 10 years ago, I was reporting a story about the Russian Orthodox Church in Russia. And this was kind of a couple of years into Putin's kind of cultural revanche and kind of rightward swing away from the West, away from, this is after Crimea, after the protests against him, which were led by kind of pro-Western urban liberals. And he was like, screw these people. I'm going hard right, traditionalist. And I'm going to talk about family values and cultural values and the ties that kind of the ancient ties that bind Russian society together. And one of those was the church. And I remember traveling around Russia talking to these conservatives and church officials. And what struck me was they were so proud of the fact that Russia never had a Reformation, like a Protestant Reformation. And unlike the Catholic Church, they hadn't even had a Counter-Reformation to kind of address some of the things that the Protestants were yelling about and to not, to keep some of their parishioners. They were like, we have existed in this exact form for 2,000 years and we haven't changed. And that's our pride.
Right. But he likes Opus Dei, which is one of the most
well, right. But I think if you're a right wing, like hard right wing reactionary, you are anti all kinds of reform, modernization. And there's something that's why I bring that up, is like how proud these right wing reactionaries in Russia were of the fact that the Russian Orthodox Church was better than the Catholic Church was too modern. Because the Catholic Church had had a Counter-Reformation and Russia had never had a Reformation or a Counter-Reformation. It was so ancient and pure. And I think in the Western context, that's the Catholic Church, right?
No,
like
right.
it's more ancient, it's more pure, like traditionally. And there's this like very strong Catholic stream or lane in the American right wing. You see it on the Supreme Court.
Mhm.
You see it in the administration. There's this like Catholic wing. I'm thinking, for example, of Elbridge Colby at the Pentagon, who is head
Mhm.
of policy at the Pentagon, a very powerful position. He is an ideological ally of Vance's, and he has said that his kind of Catholic hero is Pope Benedict the 16th,
The
Ratzinger.
least popular one. The like
Right, but he was, yeah, the Nazi one. But that's
you
it's
said
not it, I feel like
it.
no. I mean, no, Ratzinger was like he
He
was
was
pressed into
Nazi youth. Yeah. Yeah.
right, but I think for Colby, the way he explained it in this interview with the Catholic Catholic publication was that he was a traditionalist, and Benedict brought back, you know, the robes and the sumptuous rituals, and he um was getting away from this kind of
Progress.
reformist progressive part
Yeah.
of like, he wasn't Francis and he wasn't Leo. He was this kind of reactionary pope. And um from my vantage point, I think there's like, oh, excuse me, cut that. Like there's very clearly a very strong right wing Catholic lane in the Republican Party, and I think it, it's
That's how
like,
they get white ethnics to vote for them. I mean, that is how Catholic, I mean, I
yeah,
grew up in Catholic school. It was completely
mhm,
right-wing curriculum. Like, I
yeah,
didn't realize it at the time,
of
but
course,
it was. I was, like,
yeah,
indoctrinated through Catholic schools.
yeah. I mean, it's a right wing institution. It's a conservative force
Right.
in society, and I think, again, this is not something I cover, but m- from my kind of untrained eye, it feels like, you know, the George W. Bush presidency was when evangelicals and megachurches, you know, these Protestant reactionaries really rose to political prominence. This term is, I think, a lot about reactionary Catholics. And again, you see them on the Supreme Court, you see them in other branches of government, especially in this administration. But it's like this cool new retro thing to be.
Yeah, everyone's regressive now, so why not? Um,
But and that's the most in the American, in the Western context. Like it's also like the Russian Orthodox Church is growing rapidly in the US because it's like, it's also so old and archaic, and it tells men like, you're the head of the household, da da da. But I think in the Western context, religiously, the oldest thing you can be, because you're certainly not going to be a Jew, the oldest kind of Christian you can be is Catholic.
yeah, you're right. Um, I wanna talk to you for hours. I really do. You're so smart, Julia.
You're very sweet.
I miss having you as a colleague.
Me too.
Aw, I really do. I'm sure you're busy. I wanted to ask you briefly about his love of Viktor Orban, but I think that's kind of a clear thing, right? He's an autocrat, but do you think that will inform how, if he is somehow elected, would rule?
I think would like to. I think all these guys would like to. They're all, oh, and by the way, you know who else is a like a staunch Catholic is
Marco?
Steve
Oh,
Bannon. Well, and Marco, yeah.
yeah.
But Steve Bannon is a hardcore Catholic, and
You never
uh
know it from having met him.
no, he's a hardcore Catholic, and I'm actually reading, it comes out in October, but I'm reading my friend's the galley of his book. Jason Horowitz, who until recently was the New York Times bureau chief in Rome and covered the Vatican with a last name like Horowitz. But his book is really amazing for that. Like, Steve Bannon appears multiple times as trying to lead this anti Pope Francis uh, Catholic revanche headed up by an American Cardinal Burke.
Okay.
And um, it's really, again, it's really fascinating how the kind of anti-Francis Catholics have also become the core of this new MAGA, or like new Republican politics.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
And Orban was very much part of that too, like was
right.
very much part of that nexus.
Interesting.
Something for you to explore, because you know that world obviously much better than I do.
Just, I do remember covering the whole, like Hungary when I was in Europe, and
Hmm.
how difficult it was to work with them. But at the time, they were representing obviously a rightward shift that was happening all over Europe that people,
Hmm.
global elites, didn't sense. Julia, always brilliant, smartest person I know.
Oh, stop.
No, you're definitely up there. Besides that one guy I know who's trying to cure cancer at MIT right now, you're up there. But you're
Thank
a
you, Tara.
woman, so I give you even more props because I love to see brilliant women out there speaking for us. But thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you again soon. And we'll be following JD along his path. The trudgery of having to explain a war that no one wants to be in right now, right?
Nope. Thank you, Tara. Thank you so much for having me.
That was another episode of the Tara Palmieri Show. If it's your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can like, comment, follow, tell your friends about it. Just by engaging with this content, it is telling more people all about it and what we're doing here. Independent journalism without shadowy backers. And you can continue to support me in my mission working for you by becoming a YouTube member. There are many different tiers with exclusive content and access. We're building out a great membership program that you can all take part in. If you like to read my journalism, my exclusive content, you can go to the red letter by going to the QR code on the screen, or go to tarapalmieri.com. It's another way to get even more great content, exclusive, and it's a way to support an independent journalist with no shadowy backers. I want to also thank my guest, Julia Ioffe. She's my former colleague, and she wrote an incredible book called Motherland that's won awards. It's a feminist history of modern Russia from revolution to autocracy. She is a amazing journalist. I want to thank James Sussin, my producer, Abby Baker, who also produced this. I want to thank Nicole Staple and Dan Rosen, my managers, and Adam Stewart on the graphics. Got a great team here, and I am so appreciative to all of you. See you again soon.